So if you've already gotten inside your PS5 controller enough to pull out this little touchpad, which stands in the way of you customizing your PS5 controller fully and beautifully, here's how we can actually remove this and easily transfer it over to another shell. Starting off, we're going to need something like this to act as a heat source. I'm using a heating pad meant for repairs, but you can technically use anything that will warm it up a little bit. You could even use something like a hairdryer on the hot setting, but you do have to be very careful not to let it get too hot that it melts the plastic. Based on what I've done, I would say somewhere around 110 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of the best place. Once you've given it a couple minutes of heating, now we can go ahead and take something like a metal razor blade and very, very carefully slide it under there. Make sure you have the point pointing down so that if it scratches anything, it scratches the plastic and not the actual touchpad. I really prefer to use plastic to do this part, but this is not meant for actually pulling it up. This is meant for making a large enough gap that we can actually slide this very thin, almost credit card looking piece of plastic in there and start pulling away at that adhesive. I will say, do not use a regular credit card for this. It will get messy. This only works because of how thin it is. But you can pick these up for quite cheap online. But once you get that in there, you want to slowly wiggle this back and forth, getting further and further inside. Once it's starting to feel too difficult to push it in any further, put it back on the heat source, but make sure you remove this tool first, otherwise it will get all melty and bendy like you can see in this video. Once you've managed to get the card about this far under, I usually like to take one of these black prying tools right here and push it under there with the card. Because of the way the adhesive is on there, I wouldn't recommend putting it directly against the touchpad. I would make sure that this thin piece of plastic goes in between the two. But this does give you a lot more force under there to start prying up. Just keep repeating this process until eventually you feel like you can pop it up just like I did right here. So as you can see, the adhesive did not come off looking very nice, probably because I was trying to record and do this at the same time, but this will probably be more or less what it looks like for you your first time. But once it looks like this, our goal is not to put the adhesive back on there, it's to remove any clumps like this that might cause it to lay unflat. As long as you didn't pull off like all the adhesive, you should be good, especially if it's more in the center area like this, since right along the edges is the most important part to have adhesive. To remove any of these clumps, you can use a tool like these pliers, or maybe you have tweezers or something like that, and very gently and carefully remove it. Metal is never good to be putting against plastic, so you do have to be very, very careful. Once you've removed all the messed up adhesive, you can now go ahead and put this onto your new touchpad. But don't stop there. Put this back on the heat source for another couple of minutes just to let the adhesive really solidify with the plastic. But watch this even more closely than you did the first time, because this one is the custom part and is a very expensive replacement, at least compared to that part we pulled off and are never going to use again. Now you can go ahead and put this all back together and take a look at your beautifully customized PS5 controller, knowing that you just did something very difficult.